Hello and welcome back to Homebrew EDH, where I take you through my personal commander decks, how they work, and how they win. This episode is Uvilda, Dean of Perfection, and Nassari, Dean of Expression. It's one of the flip legendaries from Strixhaven. This deck is an Is-It deck focused on big spells, arriving all in due time. So with that, let's get into the episode. Now, before we get into the important parts, I'm going to read both sides of the card. So here we go. Uvilda, Dean of Perfection, is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 legendary Djinn Wizard that reads, tap, you may exile an instant or sorcery card from your hand and put 3 hone counters on it. It gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If this card is exiled, remove a hone counter from it. And when the last hone counter is removed from this card, if it's exiled, you may cast it. It costs 4 generic less to cast this way. And the other side, which is Nassari, Dean of Expression, costs 3 red for a 4/4 Efreet Shaman that reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until the end of turn, you may cast spells from among those exiled cards, and you may spend mana as though if it was any color to cast those spells. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Nassari, Dean of Expression. I built this deck solely around the front side of this card, just as a heads up going forward into the episode. The first bit in this episode is taking care of those upkeep triggers and activating it multiple times with cards like Clever Conjurer and Kelpie Guide to untap the commander. And Paradox Haze is the MVP of the deck. 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura, enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, the first one each turn, that player gets an additional upkeep step after this step. So you go upkeep, remove a counter, upkeep again, remove a second counter, speeding up the process significantly. The next bit in this episode is going to be the spells that we want to exile so that we can cast them much quicker than anybody else would see coming. Cards like Boon of the Wishgiver, when it gets reduced, is 2 mana to draw 4 cards. Inescapable Blaze is a straight up burn spell that can't be countered, potentially 2 mana, that deals 6 damage to any target. Elemental Masterpiece, got covered up a little bit, usually costs 7 mana, can now cost 3 mana to create 2 4/4s. Or, if we don't want to exile it, we can pay 2, discard that card, and create a treasure token. And Overflowing Insight, when reduced, is 3 mana to draw 7 cards. That value shouldn't really happen anywhere. Next thing we're going to go over in this deck is how to take advantage of these massive spells and their converted mana costs. Stormchaser Chimera there in the top left is 2 blue-red for a 2/3 Chimera that with flying, that has an ability of pay 2 blue and a red to scry 1, then reveal the top card of our library. It gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the card's converted mana cost. With some of these 6 and 7 mana spells, can be a lot of damage out of nowhere. Maelstrom Muse is 1 blue, hybrid blue-red, and a red, so 4 mana total there, for a 2/4 Djinn Wizard with flying. Whenever Maelstrom Muse attacks, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is Maelstrom Muse's power as this ability resolves, generally 2, because we don't run pump effects in this deck. But some reduction is better than none. And speaking of reduction, we have Goblin Electromancer and Storm Skrillex, both of which reduce our instant and sorcery spells to cast by 1. And Storm Skrillex also reads, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Storm Skrillex gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And on the very right side there is Spectacle Mage, 1 blue and a red for a Bird Shaman, 2/2 with flying. Instant and sorcery spells you cast with mana value 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast. There's only one more thing to go over in this deck tech, and that is recurring our spells on the turns where it matters most. In this case, with Ardent Elementalist and Charmbreaker Devils. Ardent Elementalist is 3 and a red for a 2/1 Human Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. And Charmbreaker Devils is 5 and a red for a 4/4 Devil. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Charmbreaker Devils gets +4/+0 until end of turn, surprising our opponents out of nowhere with a bunch of damage in one turn, hopefully knocking them out of the game. If you enjoyed this episode of Homebrew EDH, go ahead and leave a like. Be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more like this. As always, the deck list will be in the description with all the cards I did not include in this video. Constructive feedback and deck suggestions are always welcome in the comments. I read them all, And until I see you guys in the next one, take it easy and enjoy your stay.